Welcome back, everyone. Today we are wrapping up our series on Project Apollo. This is it, the final deep dive. Episode 16, focusing on Apollo 17, the last mission to the moon.
It really is the final chapter, isn't it? And maybe the most spectacular in some ways. Apollo 17 launched in December 1972.
And not just any launch, right? The only night launch of the Saturn V. I mean, can you imagine lighting up the whole Florida coast like some kind of artificial sun? What a way to start the end.
Absolutely. It set the tone. This wasn't just another mission. The sources consistently frame it as the culmination, the climax of the entire Apollo program. It was the sixth successful landing, closing out those 11 crewed missions that ran from, 62 to 72.
And it made such a powerful statement. You look at the immediate results, and it just screams peak performance. The key takeaway right from the start: the crew collected a record amount of lunar samples.
Yeah, over 3 moonwalks. That fact alone really cements A-17 as the pinnacle, scientifically and operationally. They were really leveraging everything learned from Apollo 1 right up to Apollo 16.
It feels like the shift from just proving we could get there to proving we could actually, work there effectively.
That's exactly it. The efficiency is just remarkable when you dig into the mission reports. They weren't battling the hardware anymore. They were using this incredibly mature system to do some serious geological field work.
Okay, so let's talk about the crew who carried that final weight. Commander Eugene Cernan and lunar module pilot Harrison Schmitt descended to the surface.
And command module pilot Ron Evans orbiting above. We can't forget him. But yeah, Cernan and Schmitt, they hold that unique distinction, the last 2 people to walk on the moon in the Apollo era.
And the crew itself tells a story, doesn't it?
Yeah.
One of NASA's core goals for Apollo was always carrying out a program of scientific exploration of the moon.
Right. And bringing Harrison Jack Schmitt, the lunar module pilot, onto this mission speaks volumes about that goal. It underscores the really advanced scientific mandate for Apollo 17.
Because he wasn't just an astronaut, they'd given some geology training. He was a geologist, a professional geologist, first and only one to walk on the moon. That's unprecedented for a landing crew.
Precisely. And his presence is arguably the defining factor in A-17's scientific success. Look, the previous crews were incredibly capable, heroes even, but they were mainly test pilots cross-trained in geology.
Yeah.
Schmitt was the field geologist. So on the moon, the decision-making could be much more dynamic. It wasn't just about following the flight plan checklist. It was adaptive, expert-led field work happening in real time.
That makes a huge difference.
It does. That level of geological understanding right there on the surface, it's directly linked to that record sample haul we keep mentioning. It was a fundamental shift in how science was conducted on another world.
So you had the specialist, Schmitt, but then you had Cernan, the commander. He represented the other side of the coin, the sheer operational experience.
Cernan's journey is, it's almost a perfect narrative arc for the whole program's learning curve. He wasn't new to this. He'd flown on Apollo 10.
Ah, the famous dress rehearsal mission, the one that did everything but land.
Exactly. He'd piloted the lunar module, Snoopy, down to within, 9 miles of the surface. He'd seen it up close. So commanding Apollo 17, it represents the total mastery of procedures built up over all the previous missions.
It's that combination then, isn't it? Cernan's deep operational know-how, the veteran astronaut, paired with Schmitt's specialized scientific expertise.
It created this ideal dynamic, optimized for both safety and maximizing the scientific return on this final huge mission.
And speaking of optimization, while they were heading out there, they took that photo, the blue marble.
Oh yeah, iconic. The first clear, fully illuminated shot of the entire Earth taken by a human. It just hangs there in space. It became this powerful symbol.
A reminder of what they were leaving behind and maybe what they were exploring for.
Absolutely. And it was possible because they were on this mature, reliable spacecraft, the foundational hardware, the Saturn V, the command and service module, the lunar module. It was all proving technology by December 72, fine-tuned.
The kinks had been worked out over years of flights.
Pretty much. Think about the whole flight plan. Lunar orbit rendezvous. That was decided way back in 1962, a really bold, controversial choice at the time.
Right.
By Apollo 17, it wasn't some terrifyingly complex maneuver anymore. It was, almost routine, a reliable way to get crew and gear back and forth from lunar orbit to the surface. They weren't fighting the systems, they were using the full capability of the hardware to support this massive scientific undertaking.
Everything lined up. The crew, the perfected machinery, the scientific goals. Okay, let's move to the surface itself, part 2. exploring the Taurus-Littrow Valley. This wasn't just any landing site.
No, Taurus-Littrow was chosen specifically for its geological richness and visual drama. It's this incredible valley floor surrounded by towering massives, mountains really, geologically diverse, with potential for both very old highland material and younger volcanic features.
And they had the time and the tools to really explore it. 3 long EVAs.
3 extensive moonwalks. That's the key. They spent significantly more time outside the LM than any previous crew, over 22 hours total on the surface. Time dedicated to real strategic field work.
How did they manage that much exploration? It wasn't just walking distance, surely.
No way. The game changer was the Lunar Roving Vehicle, the LRV. Apollo 17 had one, just like 15 and 16, but they really pushed its limits.
The dune buggy on the moon.
Basically, yeah. It first flew on Apollo 15, and it completely redefined lunar exploration. Before the rover, you were tied to how far you could walk in a bulky suit, maybe a few hundred yards.
Very limited.
Extremely. With the LRV, Cernan and Schmidt could go on these long traverses miles away from the Lunar Module Challenger. The sources confirm it massively expanded their range. They could cover serious ground, investigate different geological units across the valley, turning the landing site into a proper field laboratory.
Which meant they needed to be careful. I seem to recall a small incident with the rover.
Yes, the famous fender bender. Cernan accidentally brushed against the rover with his hammer and snap. Broke off part of the right rear fender extension.
On the moon. That sounds like a potentially big problem. Dust is a nightmare up there, right?
It is. Lunar dust is incredibly fine, abrasive, and it gets everywhere. Without that fender, every time they drove, they'd get showered in rooster tails of dust, coating their suits, the equipment, potentially causing overheating or mechanical issues. Not good.
So what do? You can't exactly call roadside assistance.
No. This is where that astronaut ingenuity kicks in. Back in the LM, with help from Mission Control, they improvised. They took some lunar maps they didn't need anymore, folded them, used duct tape, good old duct tape, and clamped the makeshift fender onto the rover.
Duct tape fixes everything, even on the moon. Did it work?
It worked beautifully for the next 2 EVAs, a classic example of problem solving in the field. Kept the dust down and let them continue their exploration.
Incredible. So they're driving around in their repaired rover, exploring this amazing valley, and then comes probably the most famous moment of the mission, scientifically.
The orange soil, yes. This was during the 2nd EVA at Shorty Crater. Jack Schmidt, the geologist, is looking at the ground, and suddenly he just bursts out the transcripts, capture it perfectly.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's orange. It's all orange.
You can just hear the excitement, the sheer discovery in his voice. What was it? Why was orange soil such a big deal?
It was a huge surprise. The orange soil turned out to be tiny beads of volcanic glass erupted billions of years ago in a lunar fire fountain, kind of like a volcanic geyser.
Billions, so really ancient volcanic activity.
Extremely ancient, like 3.5 billion years old. Finding evidence of this kind of explosive volcanism, especially something so visually distinct, was massive. It gave scientists vital clues about the moon's early thermal history, its internal composition, its fiery past. It was exactly the kind of discovery having a trained geologist on the surface made possible. He recognized its potential significance instantly.
A major scientific payoff. Okay, so they'd had these incredibly productive EVAs, fixed the rover, found orange soil. But eventually, time runs out. This leads us to part 3, the final farewell.
Yeah. The end of the surface exploration, it's a moment heavy with historical weight. Packing up the Ruppert Hall of samples, knowing you're the last ones.
Before they climbed back into the LM Challenger for the final time, there were some symbolic gestures, weren't there?
Yes, very poignant ones. They unveiled a small plaque fixed to the leg of the landing stage, the part that would be left behind.
What did it say?
It depicted the 2 hemispheres of Earth, showed the continents, and had signatures of the 3 crew members and President Nixon. And the inscription read, "Here man completed his first explorations of the moon, December 1972 AD. May the spirit of peace in which we came be reflected in the lives of all mankind."
A message for whoever might find it someday.
Exactly. And then, perhaps the most remembered words of the mission, Gene Cernan, standing at the foot of the ladder, ready to take the last human step off the moon for generations, as it turned out.
What did he say?
He paused, and the transcripts record him saying, "Bob, this is Gene, and I'm on the surface. And as I take man's last step from the surface, back home for some time to come, but we believe not too long into the future, I'd like to just say what I believe history will record. That America's challenge of today has forged man's destiny of tomorrow. And as we leave the moon at Taurus-Littrow, we leave as we came, and God willing, as we shall return, with peace and hope for all mankind. Godspeed the crew of Apollo 17.
As we shall return. Powerful words, full of hope, but also acknowledging the end of an era.
Deeply moving. And then they climbed up, sealed the hatch, and prepared for liftoff. And unlike previous missions, we actually got to see it.
That's right. They left the rover parked some distance away, and Mission Control remotely controlled its TV camera.
Yeah, so people back on Earth watched live as the LM Ascent stage, Challenger, fired its engine and lifted off in this shower of debris and insulation, leaving the descent stage and the rover behind. Humanity's last view from the lunar surface for over 50 years now. An incredible, almost surreal image.
While Cernan and Schmidt were making history on the surface and lifting off, Ron Evans was orbiting overhead in the command module, America. He wasn't just waiting around, was he?
Not at all. Evans had a packed schedule of orbital science. He spent 3 days alone up there, operating cameras, mapping sensors, essentially conducting a whole separate remote sensing mission. His work provided crucial global context for the surface findings. High-resolution photography, infrared scans, radar sounding, a huge amount of data.
And the mission wasn't over once Cernan and Schmidt docked back with him. There was one more EVA.
Yes, on the journey home, Ron Evans performed a deep space EVA out in the void between the moon and Earth. He had to retrieve film cassettes and data tapes from the scientific instrument bay on the service module. Jack Schmidt stood in the hatch assisting. It was the final spacewalk of the Apollo program.
Just amazing, the complexity, the coordination, right to the very end. Okay, so they made it back safely, splashed down in the Pacific, the end of Apollo 17, and the end of the lunar landings. This brings us to part 4, the epilogue, the legacy of Apollo.
Right. Apollo 17 itself, as we've said, was the scientific high point. Record samples, longest duration, most distance covered, most sophisticated experiments deployed. It showed what the program could do when fully mature.
But the end felt abrupt, didn't it? We achieved this incredible capability, peaked with A-17, and then stopped. Why?
Well, that's a complex question historians still debate. The short answer involves shifting national priorities, the immense cost, the perception that the space race against the Soviets had been won with the first landing, maybe declining public interest, the rise of the space shuttle program. It was a confluence of factors. Apollo was incredibly expensive, born of a specific geopolitical moment. Once that moment passed, the political will and the funding faded.
So a silence fell after December 1972. No more human footsteps beyond Earth orbit. But Apollo left behind more than just footprints and flags, right? What's the enduring legacy?
Oh, immense. Firstly, the technological leaps were profound. Think about computing. The Apollo Guidance Computer pushed miniaturization and reliability in ways that directly influenced the entire digital revolution. Materials science, communications technology, systems management, the ripple effects were huge.
And the science, beyond the orange soil.
A completely revolutionized understanding of the moon, its origin, its history, its relationship to Earth. And by studying the moon, we learned incredible amounts about our own planet's early history, too. Plus, those images, like the blue marble, fostered the overview effect, that sense of Earth's fragility and interconnectedness. It had a huge cultural impact.
And inspiration.
Unquantifiable, really. It inspired generations of scientists, engineers, astronauts, artists, dreamers. It showed what humanity could achieve with focus, resources, and daring.
Let's look back at those original NASA goals for Apollo you mentioned earlier. Did the program, culminating in A-17, actually achieve them?
I think the record shows a definitive yes. Goal 1, establish the required technology. Absolutely. Saturn V, rendezvous, life support proven and mastered.
Goal 2, achieve preeminence in space. Achieved with Apollo 11, solidified by every mission after, especially the scientific prowess shown by 17.
Goal 3, fulfill a program of scientific lunar exploration. Apollo 17, with Schmidt and the Record Science Hall, was the exclamation point on that. It became a mature scientific program.
And Goal 4, develop human capability to operate in the lunar environment.
A-17 demonstrated that perhaps better than any other. 3 days, long EVAs, complex fieldwork, rover driving, fixing problems. Cernan and Schmidt proved humans could be effective, productive explorers on another world, not just visitors, but workers.
So all boxes kicked, and the legacy isn't just in museums or history books. You mentioned the data.
That's maybe the most vital part of the ongoing legacy. The sheer volume of documentation is staggering, and much of it is accessible. You've got things like the Apollo Lunar Surface Journal, ALSJ, detailed transcripts, commentary, images for every EVA.
We mentioned the voice transcripts earlier, too.
Exactly. The raw tech, PAO, CM, LM loops every word spoken. Mission transcripts. Then there are the scientific data sets, the sample analyses, the ALSEP data, which kept transmitting for years. Seismology, heat flow, atmosphere.
Is that data still used?
Absolutely. Scientists today are still analyzing Apollo samples with new techniques, finding new insights. The seismic data helps understand moonquakes. It's combined with data from modern orbiters like LRO. It's not dead history, it's an active archive.
And the engineering knowledge.
Captured in things like the Apollo by the numbers statistical reference and the detailed NASA history series volumes like Chariots for Apollo or Moonport. These document the how-to, the engineering challenges, the management decisions. It's the blueprint.
Which connects directly to today, doesn't it? To the Artemis program.
Precisely. Artemis aims to return humans to the moon, establish a sustainable presence. It builds directly on Apollo's foundation, the technology concepts, the scientific questions, the operational lessons learned right up through Apollo 17. Cernan's promise, "We shall return," is what Artemis is trying to fulfill.
An incredible arc, from the first steps to the final comprehensive exploration, setting the stage for the future. Okay, let's wrap up this final Apollo deep dive with a quick summary of Apollo 17 itself and those defining numbers.
Sounds good. Apollo 17, the sixth and final lunar landing, December 1972. Commander Gene Cernan, lunar module pilot Harrison Schmitt on the surface in the Taurus-Littrow Valley, command module pilot Ron Evans in orbit, the scientific apex of the program.
And by the numbers, what records did A-17 set?
Okay, longest time spent on the lunar surface by a crew during a mission, about 75 hours total. Longest total duration of moonwalks, EVAs, over 22 hours across the 3 excursions. Greatest distance driven in the lunar roving vehicle, about 35.9 kilometers, or 22.3 miles. And the big one, largest haul of lunar samples returned to Earth, roughly 110.5 kilograms, or 243.6 pounds. Just a phenomenal scientific return.
Those numbers really underscore the capability they had reached by the end. Peak Apollo.
No question. It was the culmination of a decade of unbelievable effort and ingenuity.
And maybe the final thought for you listening is about that accessibility we mentioned. The fact that because of the meticulous records, the transcripts, the journals, the data, this grand adventure isn't locked away. You can, in a sense, relive it. You can explore the moon alongside Cernan and Schmitt through their own words and data.
That's exactly right. The journey isn't just history. It's an open scientific and engineering case study. It's all there. The mission ended, but the exploration, in a way, continues through that incredible preserved record. It's a legacy that keeps giving.